What is going on, everyone? Today I'm going to be giving you my top 10 best episodes of Stranger Things from season 1 all the way up to season 4. I've been very excited to do this video. I had to go back and rewatch some of the older episodes because I haven't actually seen those since they first came out. So I went back, rewatched some of Stranger Things, and I made my definitive top 10 episodes list. A lot of this was really hard to do because some of these episodes are like a razor thin difference in terms of how great they are. But these are just some outstanding episodes. I would say this whole show is pretty outstanding. There aren't many episodes that I genuinely dislike. Even that episode everyone talks about in season 2, the one with 11 going on her own, that's even one that I still enjoy. So like even the worst episode of the series, I still get some enjoyment out of. But let's get through the top 10 best of the series. All these episodes are pretty incredible, and of course the top couple are just masterpieces. Coming to the 10 spot is going to be season 1, episode 7, which was called The Bathtub. So The Bathtub is the episode where everyone kind of comes together finally, which is something that a lot of Stranger Things seasons do, where there's different plot lines throughout the season, and then they all kind of come together towards the very end of the season. And this was the episode that did that for season 1. And I thought it was really cool because the main plot lines in the story kind of were separated by age. So essentially you had the kids with 11, that whole group, and then you had Steve, Jonathan, Nancy, and the storyline with them going on. Mainly it was between Jonathan and Nancy, and Steve was just kind of a background character at this point. He becomes more of a major character later on, but that was one of the stories. And then obviously the other story was between Joyce and Hopper trying to find Will, and even the kids were trying to find Will. So like everything kind of had some sort of connection, but they weren't doing it together until this episode. It was really cool to see them all come together because you have interactions with characters that didn't have interactions prior. Like you were seeing 11 interact with Hopper for the first time. You're seeing the kids interacting with Hopper. You see Joyce and 11 together having some scenes, which they have really great scenes in this episode where Joyce is kind of just thanking 11 for being such a brave girl, doing all the stuff, trying to help find her son. You have Nancy and Mike having scenes together as brother and sister, and they have some funny dialogue back and forth because, you know, there's a little bit of tension between Mike and 11, and you know, Nancy's making fun of him about it, and same thing with Nancy and Jonathan, and Mike was making fun of her about it. So stuff like that was really fun. Of course, the opening of the episode, 11 flips a freaking van that was chasing after them in that bike chase, which was a really fun scene, really fun opening scene. Joyce and Jonathan have a great scene together as well. There's a lot of solid scenes here. It's mainly between Joyce, honestly. Joyce has a lot of the best scenes in season 1, let's be real here. But it's nice to see Jonathan admitting that she was right because he did run into the Demogorgon just the past episode with Nancy. So that was cool. And then you just have 11 trying to find Will and Barb with doing like the water trick that they do, where she was in a bathtub in the school and she finds out that Barb is dead and finds that Will is still alive, so they can actually go into the Upside Down to try and finally find Will. So a lot of eventful stuff happens in this episode. It was just nice to see the characters all coming together, therefore making it a very enjoyable episode. Number 9 is going to be season 3, episode 4, which was titled The Sauna Test. This is kind of an underrated one, I think. I don't think many people talk about this one as much as they should. But this is when season 3 really starts to ramp up and the characters start to really understand what's going on. And they realize that there is definitely something wrong with Billy and Heather. And so the kids establish this plan, minus Dustin, of course, because Dustin's doing the stuff with the other characters. But most of the kids kind of go over this plan to try and trap Billy in the sauna near the pool area, which was just a cool location to have this, you know, season set in for a lot of it because it's taking place during summer. Really cool. And their plan to try to get him in there because they believe he has been affected by the mind flare, and they know the mind flare doesn't like the heat, so they think to do that. And that's obviously the best part of the episode, especially the ending scene where 11 actually goes toe-to-toe with Billy, who is now possessed by the mind flare. And it's a really intense scene. I mean, Billy is just incredible in this scene, the way he's just first of all trying to trick Max into being like, no, I'm your brother, no. Like, I love how the mind flare messes with people's minds like that.
It's my fault, Max, I promise you, it's not my fault.
Well, it's not your fault, Billy.
I've done things, Max, really bad things.
By trying to kind of make it seem like even Vecna did that, which we know Vecna kind of is control of the mind flare to a degree after season 4, so we do know that that was probably Vecna even doing that in the first place. But I love how the Upside Down creatures in general like to do that, where they kind of mess with your mind by making you think that they're on your side by pretending to be one of your loved ones. And obviously that was happening here with Billy pretending to care for Max, and then he just comes out and starts attacking, trying to kill Max.
Let me out, you bitch! Let me out! I'll fucking cut you!
And then they have a fight between 11 and 11, like throwing the barbell right at him. Like, just a really cool scene. It was one of the best action scenes of that season. And this episode also had a lot of other stuff going on. You had Dustin, Erica, Robin, and Steve just trying to kind of deal with this Russian code thing. They kind of establish a plan to actually get into the base, and they actually start finding stuff about the base within this episode. They find some weird, like, green goo. They have no idea what it is. Jonathan and Nancy have their sort of Mrs. Driscoll story thing going on. This is the aftermath of what happened last episode, and they just kind of deal with that. And again, the story is kind of ramping up in all different directions. Hopper and Joyce are just trying to get more information about the Russians from the mayor, and just a couple fun scenes there with them. It was just a really all-around enjoyable episode, but mainly the stuff with the sauna test is where the highlight of this episode really is. Coming number 8 spot is going to be season 2, episode 9, which was actually the finale, which was titled The Gate. This was a really solid finale, but actually every other finale I think is even better, which you'll see later on in this list. But this is still a really incredible finale, even if it is the weakest finale of all 4 of them. So this is a lot of stuff going on. First of all, the episode starts off with everyone's reaction to Elle being back, right? So most of them thought 11 was dead, especially the kids. Hopper was the only one who was aware that she was still around. But even then, his reaction to her being back with the cool, new haircut, the bitchin' hairstyle, and the new clothes and stuff, that was still fun. But just seeing the kids' reactions to it was really emotional. Some of them were just kind of, happy to see her, whereas Mike was genuinely pissed off at Hopper, and they had a really good scene together. And we get a really nice scene later on as well with Hopper telling 11 about his daughter Sarah and what happened to her, which I thought was a really amazing scene, one of the best scenes of the entire season. You had, of course, Billy versus Steve happening in this episode. Billy was an interesting story this season. I think he was way more interesting in season 3, but in season 2, he was mainly just there to make problems worse than they had, more annoying than they had to be, essentially. Like, he just got in the way of a lot of things because he was very overprotective over Max in a very abusive way, and he did not want Max hanging out with these kids. And so he comes here, he sees Steve with her, and he's just confused, so he just starts making problems and starts a fight with Steve, and they have a fun little fight that ends with Max knocking him out with like that injection. And then just a really nice scene, really cool scene, just to show Max's strength here, and that she finally kind of stood up to her brother in a way that she probably wanted to do for quite some time, and she just never did before. So I thought that was really cool. You have Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy heating up Will in the shed to try and get the mind flare out of him, which I thought was just really heartbreaking to see, because Will's just sitting there screaming in pain because the mind flare is trying to like come out. Well, he's trying to stay in, but it's forcefully making come out because of the heat. And Joyce is just sit there and watches her son just deal with all that pain, but she knows it's what has to be done. So that was really emotional. You have the kids then later on going to kind of burn up the vines in the tunnels in that little farm area to try and help out with the situation, and that was a fun little thing. They have a little run-in with Dart, and Dustin kind of speaks to Dart, and eventually Dart's like, "Oh, I won't eat you." It was cool because it kind of shows that the Demodogs have an animalistic instinct in some way, where like some animals can kind of feel, not really compassion, but they can be almost trained by people to not attack them if they're close to them. And that's kind of what happened here. He was, close to Dustin before when he grew up, therefore he wasn't feeling the need to bite his face out, whereas a lot of the other Demodogs obviously would. So that was cool. And then, of course, we have Hopper and 11 finally closing the gate, which was definitely the highlight of the episode. Hopper was shooting all the Demodogs down that were trying to attack them when they're on that little conveyor belt thing, or not the conveyor belt, the lift thing, and just 11 just holding out her hand as usual, just trying to close that gate. Really cool stuff. And then you get the snowball at the end of the episode, where all the kids are just having a good time at the snowball, and Lucas kisses Max, and So does Mike with 11, and Dustin is all sad because he can't find a girl to dance with, but Nancy dances with him. Just a lot of fun stuff in this episode. It's a pretty good one. It's coming in number 8. So I'm going to be honest, the next 4 episodes are kind of interchangeable. Like, I really had a hard time picking the order for these next 4. So literally just put them in any order you want, but I found an order for them. I just honestly, that depends on the day. Tomorrow I might change my mind, I don't know. But that's just how good a lot of these episodes here are from here on out. So number 7, I have season 4, episode 7, which was titled The Massacre at Hawkins' Lab. So this was the finale of volume 1 of season 4, and it was a very eventful episode. Obviously, all season 4 episodes are very long, so even this one was pretty long as well. This is actually the second longest, I believe, out of all of them, and we had a lot going on. So first of all, Nancy, Robin, Steve, and Eddie were all stuck in the Upside Down trying to get home, and they had the help of Dustin, Lucas, Erica, Max, and such back in the real world. And it was really cool seeing them kind of like communicating with each other within Nancy's house, and it was just a really fun thing. There wasn't anything too crazy going down other than the very beginning when they were being attacked by the Demobats and they kind of had to fight them off. That was a really fun scene. But later on, they were just trying to escape. But even then, it was really enjoyable watching them trying to escape. And just seeing them explore the Upside Down was amazing. Just how beautiful and creepy the Upside Down really does look. And then they find a way to get in because of Dustin's intelligence, trying to realize that, okay, it seems like gates are opening up where Vecna kills people. So therefore, they go to where Chrissy died, and they go to the, little gate, and they actually find there is one there, and then they go through it. And it's really cool how it ends with Nancy getting stuck in Vecna's curse. And this is how Vecna actually reveals like who he is. He's kind of like talking to Nancy, but we also kind of tie it back to the flashbacks with 11, where we still get more of these 11 flashbacks, and we get to kind of learn more about who Vecna even is. We actually completely learn who he is, and he is the character of One, who we see in the past couple episodes in these 11 flashbacks. And we also know that he is now Henry Creel, which was Victor Creel's son. So it like ties everything together, which was just so incredible. And I would say the highlight of the episode, or at least one of the highlights, would be, of course, that reveal and the way he kind of monologues to 11, and then we kind of see a fight between the two of them. We kind of learn what exactly happened, how 11 did kind of create what Vecna becomes later on, and it just plays into the next 2 episodes so damn well. So incredible stuff there. But then on top of this, we get the stuff in Russia, which was completely separate, but holy shit was it awesome. Seeing the Demogorgon come out and attack the prisoners and just take them all out one by one was phenomenal, man. It was so cool to watch this Demogorgon just rip people to shreds. And then Hopper and Enzo, I know his real name's not Enzo, but it's more fun than his real name, so I call him Enzo anyways. And just seeing him escaping or trying to escape with Hopper, and they do succeed with the help of Murray and Joyce, which was a really cool little plan they had there to take Yuri in as a prisoner. And that stuff ends on a cliffhanger because we don't know what's going to really be happening after all that. And also the other stuff ends on a cliffhanger. So pretty much everything ends on a cliffhanger here, which I think worked very well because we knew Volume 2 was coming out within just a month after this episode. So yeah, I'm a big fan of this episode. Really, really big fan. It's just, I don't think quite better than the ones above it. Number 6 is going to be The Bite, and this is season 3, episode 7. This is the definitive 4th of July episode. This is like when 4th of July is actually happening, and they have the whole carnival thing in Hawkins, and it's really cool. I love carnivals, I love fairs, something about them, something about the music and just the atmosphere, and it's just really cool to see a lot of scenes in the carnival. But the episode begins with, I think, one of the best scenes in Stranger Things history, where the group is at Hopper's cabin in the woods, and they're being attacked by the Mind Flare monster creature thing. And holy shit was that scene awesome. Just 11 fighting off this creature, basically all by herself. She has a little bit of help, but I mean, what can the kids really do to help, to be honest? 11's basically fighting it off by herself. And she's struggling. She really is struggling. She gets bit by this thing. She gets grabbed a couple times. She's just trying her best. And they get good enough, time to escape because 11 like rips apart half of the thing's face. And yeah, like I said, that was all just some really incredible action. This season as a whole was just really action-packed, and this was a really nice scene included there. And then, of course, you have Dustin's group, the group that was just in the Russian base. They finally have escaped, and they're essentially hiding in a Back to the Future movie, like a movie screening of Back to the Future, which was kind of cool to see. They have one scene where like they play the Back to the Future music when Mike finally reaches Dustin on the walkie-talkie. Like I thought that was pretty cool.
The code red. Dustin? Mike? Dustin!
Mike!
And Robin has a really good conversation with Steve here, where she does reveal her sexuality to Steve, which I thought was actually a really nice scene, because Steve was kind of like falling in love with her basically throughout this whole season, and he finally was getting over Nancy. And then it's kind of heartbreaking for him because he's, you know, not able to be with her because of that, but he just kind of realizes, well, it's not a big deal, I'm your friend now, I guess. And they become good friends, and we see them becoming great friends in season 4, and I thought that storyline worked out pretty damn well. And then you get the stuff with Hopper, Joyce, Murray, and Alexei at the carnival. Of course, Alexei getting killed by the Terminator guy, and that was, you know, heartbreaking to a degree. You know, I don't think Alexei was the greatest character ever, but it was still sad to see. The dude was so happy to, you know, win a prize at the carnival, and he just gets shot. It's a little sad to see. And then we get a nice little fight between Hopper and a couple of the Russians inside of the funhouse, which was a really cool location to have a fight scene. And the one Terminator guy comes in, and Hopper shoots him down. He should have probably just finished him off in the head. He only shot him in the chest, which he had a bulletproof vest on, so it didn't kill him. But oh well, I'm glad he didn't die, because we got a much better fight in the next episode anyways. But there was just so much stuff that happened here, and then it ends off with 11 taking out a group of Russians with a damn car. Awesome. Awesome stuff. So yeah, this episode's great. Number 5 is going to be Season 1, Episode 8, the finale. This was titled The Upside Down, or The Upside Down. I always want to say upslide. I always say upside in the weirdest way possible, but that's just my pronunciation of words being a little shitty sometimes. So this episode is a lot going down. So obviously after last episode, the groups do split up again. We do see different groups here, and I think the groups are really cool because it's just the same groups that we had the whole past season. They just came together for that one episode. But obviously they're working on similar things, to a degree at least. So Jonathan and Nancy are trying to kill the Demogorgon. That's their plan. And they set up this whole elaborate plan at the buyer's house trying to trap it. And it was really awesome seeing Steve join in to the fight, because unintentionally, obviously, he's just coming there to kind of apologize to Jonathan. He's like, why is Nancy here? And he starts freaking out because he sees Nancy's injured. But he gets involved in this, and it's really funny seeing Steve just kind of freak out. He's like, what the fuck's going on here? And they actually do catch the Demogorgon, and they do fight it off and actually injure it quite a bit, but it does get away, and unfortunately it gets back into the Upside Down. And just all that stuff was really cool stuff in the beginning of the episode. Jonathan even has a close call with it. The kids back at school are getting attacked by the Hawkins lab people, and another Demogorgon comes there. I think it's probably the same one, just kind of like going in the Upside Down and then goes back in. I'm not sure if it was a different one or not, but I assumed it was the same one. And basically kills a bunch of the people in there. 11 also kills a bunch of them before as well. The way she just kind of squashes their brains in was just so cool. One of the coolest 11 moments in the whole show. And 11 also has this sort of sacrifice to take out the Demogorgon herself, but we do know, of course, it didn't actually kill her. It just brought her into the Upside Down, just like what she did to Vecna, where she pushed Vecna into the Upside Down. That's kind of the same thing that happened to her. She just pushed herself into the Upside Down, so kind of interesting. Of course, we also get Hopper and Joyce going into the Upside Down themselves to try and find Will. And they do actually find Will. And I think the best thing about this scene was the parallels they have to Hopper's daughter dying in the hospital. And that was, I think, one of the best scenes in the entire show, where he's given CPR to Will, trying to keep him alive. You could tell he's trying his hardest. Like, he is absolutely got his blood, sweat, and tears put into saving this kid. And the way it flashes back to his daughter, it was just it's so sad. I definitely teared up the first time I saw it. And that's when I knew this was a special show, because it was able to really make me care about this character within just the 8 episodes that they had. And I don't know, it was amazing. And that's why Hopper's character has such a massive effect on the show going forward. And coming in number 4 spot is going to be season 2 episode 8, which was titled The Mind Flayer. This one was incredibly exciting. So we had a big cliffhanger at the end of episode 6 where they were being attacked by the Demodogs at Hawkins' lab. And then they give us episode 7, which again was probably the weakest episode of the whole series, and it had nothing to do with the cliffhanger. But episode 8 finally gets back into what the cliffhanger ended off with, so we finally get to see what happens at Hawkins' lab, and it is really cool. They are all being attacked by Demodogs at Hawkins' lab, and it's really intense. There's some really intense scenes here, and Bob is the one who's kind of like the MVP here, trying to figure out a way out, and a safe way out, of course. And he does have, of course, his death scene here, which is sad. It's emotional. It's not like we thought he was like the greatest character ever at this point in the series, but it was sad because he was such a sweet person who just so innocent, man. His soul was so innocent, and it was sad to see Sean Astin, of course, leave this show. But I loved every second of how they handled his character here because it has a big effect on Joyce going forward into later seasons. So I thought it was well done. You also have Steve, of course, babysitting more in this episode, which was a whole season 2, kind of almost like a joke, and it kind of went on as a running gag for the whole series of him being the babysitter. But they do a lot of that in this episode, and I thought it was pretty cool. And of course, later in the episode, everyone's back at the Byers' house, and they're trying to kind of figure out what to do with Will and trying to figure out what to do with the Mind Flayer situation. And they do the thing where they hide Will in the shed because they realize he's a spy for the Mind Flayer, but that means Will can also possibly help them out because he's also inside the mind of the Mind Flayer. And he does help them out. He kind of gives them information with using Morse code, which I thought was a really cool sequence. And, you know, then eventually Mind Flayer does find out where they are. So then they are attacked by more Demodogs, but 11 saves them. 11 takes them all out, and then it ends off there, leading into the finale, which was just great. All around, that episode just did everything it should have done pretty much perfectly. So yeah, incredible episode. Incredible end to season, well, not end to season 2, but the penultimate episode of season 2. Just like the last 4, these next 3, the top 3, are very interchangeable. Like I had such a hard time actually picking an order because they're so close, but the next 3, the top 3, they are incredible. These are masterpieces, the definitive Stranger Things episodes. You can probably guess which ones before even watching it, but I really had trouble picking this. So don't be like, oh my god, this one should have been higher. Like, honestly, yeah, I probably agree. Like, it depends on how I'm feeling, depends on what mood I am, but any of these top 3 could be number 1. They really all could. Number 3 is going to be season 4, episode 4, Dear Billy. So this is one that probably has the most impact on a lot of people because of how deep the story is here. I think the only reason I didn't put this higher than the next 2 is because those next 2 have like amazing stuff going on for the entire episode, whereas this one, it's more so like the last half of the episode, whereas the first half, it's good, it's fine, but it's not like getting to that really good stuff just yet. You know, it's a little bit slower in the beginning. So I guess that's why I just think there's definitely 2 other episodes that are just a little bit better. But this one is so damn good, man. I love this episode. So of course, the best part of this episode is Max. Just her entire character arc in this episode is what is so damn good. The way she's overcoming depression, her suicidal thoughts, guilt, grief. She's overcoming a lot of stuff. And she's kind of coming with the fact that she's coming to terms with the fact that she's probably going to die soon. And seeing a character go through those feelings of I probably will be dying soon is just really interesting. The way she's kind of giving notes to everybody, letters that she wants them to read if she does die, to her friends, she goes to her family, and all throughout this episode, she's still being hunted by Vecna. She has a couple of those Vecna vision curses, things, whatever you want to call them, and they're all really damn good. I mean, the intensity these scenes have, of course, they feel very Nightmare on Elm Street-esque, or like even like It with Pennywise, the way he kind of haunts people. It feels a lot like that. They have Billy returning in this episode to haunt Max, which was so damn awesome. But just the scenes of Max running away from Vecna, they're just so damn creepy and well directed. The atmosphere is glorious. The music is incredible. It's just such good horror. Like, this episode is definitely one of the best episodes for horror fans, for sure. I absolutely love it. And then of course it leads to the ending, which is the scene that I would say is the best scene of the series, where Max is basically like about to die. She's gonna die. Vecna has her by the throat with all the different like tentacle things, and he's about to just take her life the same way he did to Chrissy and Fred. But thankfully Robin figured out that music is the key. From that conversation with Victor, she figures it out, and they get that information, and then they put on Max's favorite song, Running Up That Hill, and Max kind of gains the strength to fight back because of the power of music and how it can kind of reach parts of the brain that nothing else can. Which, just true. I mean, music is really impactful to people. It can really do a lot for them. And the way it kind of gives her the motivation to stay alive, because it gives her all these memories of her friends and first time she kissed Lucas and all these great memories she has, and the way it flashes back to all those memories in kind of this really emotional montage with an amazing mix of Running Up That Hill. Shit, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I want to put this at number one. Like I said, it could be number one. Any of these three could be. It's just so hard to choose between them because they're just so good. But this ending scene is a masterpiece. I watched it like 1,000 times after it came out. It makes me cry. It makes me cheer. It's incredible. Incredible. And the rest of the episode also has a lot of good stuff. You have Nancy and Robin speaking to Victor Creel, of course played by Robert Englund, which was an incredible scene. Robert Englund gives an incredible monologue. I keep using the word incredible, but that's a lot of things in this show. It just is very incredible. Of course, you have Hopper escaping the prison camp. He gets captured again, but he has some cool scenes here where he's kind of fighting some prison guards, and he like goes on a snowmobile to ride off. He blows up a shed with dynamite, like some cool stuff there with Hopper. And then the California group with Jonathan, Argyle, Will, and Mike get attacked at Byers' house from that government, that are the government people that are kind of coming after 11. And it's a really nice one-shot scene where they're kind of going through the house, and the one secret agent guy is protecting them, and a really well done scene. Like, there's just so much stuff happening in this episode. Like, each of the groups have like a really big thing happen in this episode. It just kind of all comes together so nicely, the way that happens in this episode. But of course, the stuff with Max is what puts it on top. But I just don't think it's top two, just because the earlier parts of the episode aren't nearly as good as the later parts. Whereas the next two episodes, I feel like, are consistently amazing throughout every second of its runtime. With that being said, number 2 is gonna be season 4, episode 9, The Piggyback, which of course is the season 4 finale. When I first watched this, I probably said this in my video, my reaction to this episode, I was saying that this is the best episode by far. I was like, this is easily the best episode. But of course, that was an in-the-moment thing. When I really thought about it afterwards and rewatched other episodes, I kind of came to my senses and realized, okay, it's not the best, but it's very close. And like I said, depending on the day, it really could be the best. It just depends on the day. I don't know. And that day was definitely one day where I thought it was definitely the best. But after thinking about it, I don't think it's the best. I don't really have any big negatives on the episode other than maybe like, yeah, I would have preferred like a little bit more, make the stakes a little bit higher by having at least one other character dying. Something like that I think could have worked. But it is such an incredible episode regardless. Like, I don't care that they didn't have, like, people are really pissed online that they didn't kill off like a bunch of characters. I'm okay with them not doing that. It's not The Walking Dead. I don't need that to happen for the show to be effective. But yeah, I think the stakes would have just felt a little bit higher if they did. But there's still so much great stuff about this episode. First of all, everyone coming together against Vecna, even though they are in other parts of the world, I think was really cool because most of the time they come together physically, whereas this time they can't physically come together because they're, again, on other parts of the world. But they still are working on the same goal to defeat Vecna, and I think that kind of works out very nicely because it's just nice to see them all working on a similar goal rather than having separate storylines happening like they did for the rest of the season. So that was cool. The California group has their thing with 11 in the bathtub so she can piggyback into Max's mind. Definitely the weakest stuff going on in the episode, only because characters that were really important to later previous seasons like Will, Jonathan, and Mike, they do absolutely nothing here. Well, I guess Mike has that nice speech towards 11, which is the only thing he really did here, but it's just weird seeing them not really do all that much in the story, given the fact that they used to do a lot in prior seasons. But regardless, that's not a big deal. It's just something I thought of when watching it. The stuff with Lucas, Erica, and Max in the main world in the Creel house, I think is probably the most intense stuff because the stakes there are the highest. Because Max is probably the character in the most danger because Vecna is after Max more than anyone else. So the stakes here are huge, and then Jason gets involved and just makes the issue so much worse. And of course, this leads to the most emotional scene of the entire episode, where Max does get snapped. And when you're first watching it, you have no idea if she's gonna die. I was literally going between my mind like 1,000 times whether or not she was gonna die. I was like, oh, she's gonna die, then she's not. No, she's gonna die. No, she's not. I went back and forth on it a million times. And when you see that first arm snap back, like your heart skips a beat. You're like, are you kidding me? They did it? They killed off Max? But then you're like, wait, no, it might just be an injury, maybe she'll be okay, but then a leg snaps, and you're like, what? And the rest of her limbs snap, and it's like, holy shit, but 11 does end up fighting back at last second to save Max. But you still are like, well, she's like probably gonna be paralyzed and blind for life, so it's still very, very fucked up and very sad to see happen to her. And in the moment, they do make you think she died, because after that scene, a little bit later, she does kind of die for a little bit. Lucas is holding her, and probably the best scene of the episode, I would say one of the best scenes of the show as well, where she is dying in Lucas's arm, and Lucas gives one of the best performances on the show, and it's definitely the most heartbreaking scene I've ever seen.
Max, stay with me. Just look at me, Max. Max, look. No, stay with me, Max. Hang on, just hang on. Erica,
But using some sort of CPR that 11 does with her powers, a lot of people are confused by that. How did she bring Max back to life? I believe she just did CPR on her just by using her powers to do CPR. I don't know how she knows how to do that. I don't know, but she just probably pumped her heart a little bit with her powers, and boom, it brought her back to life. I don't know. The stuff with Dustin and Eddie was fantastic. Seeing them fight off the Demobats, and of course Eddie getting to play Master of Puppets on his guitar, making one of the coolest scenes of the whole season, and kind of finding a way to bring all the bats to them the best way they possibly can. And it's just really cool montage that they had. They showed off some other stuff going on in the episode as well with that song, which fit perfectly. And Eddie gets a death that I think was one of the best deaths in the show, because he was able to kind of have a full circle character arc where he was kind of the person who was very, just kind of fun, just, messed around. But then when shit hit the fan, he kind of ran off when Chrissy died, and he felt guilty about it. He felt guilty about running away, so he doesn't run here. He actually fights back against the Demobats, and it was a really cool scene. Really, really cool. And then he, of course, dies, which he did sacrifice himself, and it did help out the group, because giving them an extra few minutes probably helped. That probably helped the plan actually work. Kind of work. I mean, it didn't completely work, obviously, but it definitely helped. Probably at least gave them enough time to fight back, whereas otherwise the bats would have got back and they would have taken out, Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve, or not Nancy, Steve, and Robin. So yeah, definitely good that he did that, but it was just, like I said, just such a great scene, just such a great character. Eddie was fantastic here. Moral of the story, Eddie was great. And even the stuff with just Steve, Nancy, and Robin this episode was really cool. Just going them going to defeat Vecna in the Upside Down, just seeing them go through the Upside Down again was just really cool. Nancy with the shotgun just kind of shooting up Vecna was great. You have Hopper, Joyce, Murray in the Russian base fighting the Demogorgon and the Demodogs. Again, really awesome. Murray using that flamethrower was amazing, but more so Hopper using that sword was amazing. Him slicing up that Demogorgon to that amazing remix of Running Up That Hill, that kind of remixed with the Stranger Things main theme, was probably my favorite scene. I said that the scene from Max with in episode 4 was better, but honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I think that actually might be my favorite scene. The scene where there's that Running Up the Hill remix in this episode, and Hopper's taking out the Demogorgon, and simultaneously Nancy's shooting up Vecna, 11's attacking Vecna in that sort of Vecna mind world or whatever. And I really like how Vecna actually doesn't die in the end, and how he's kind of still out there, because that looming threat is really making me way more excited than season 5 than I probably would be otherwise. So that's really awesome. And they have that amazing ending scene where they're looking off into the distance at the destruction that happened, because his plan kind of worked because Max was dead for like a minute, so he was able to make the gates open up the way he planned because of 4 people dying. And that scene where the gates were opening up was just so damn terrifying because it's like, holy shit, he's actually bringing the Upside Down into the main world. And then seeing the very ending where it's like it is happening slowly, the Upside Down is slowly coming into the main world. It's not gonna happen fast, but it's gonna happen. Unless Max dies in the coma, then I think it might just automatically happen. I don't know, but it's just really, really cool to see that. And Hopper and Eleven have their reunion at the end of the episode, which was great. And of course, the soundtrack in this episode as a whole. Every episode has amazing soundtrack, to be honest, but this one was definitely one of the best in terms of soundtracks. Number 1 is going to be Season 3, Episode 8, which was, of course, the finale. This was titled The Battle of Starcourt. So this is the number 1 episode, in my opinion, just because it does everything Stranger Things does so well, but it does it all in one episode and probably to its best of its ability that it possibly could. So first of all, this is definitely the most action-packed episode. If you're watching the show for action, this has got to be like one of your favorite episodes because yes, it is definitely the most action-packed episode. You have so many action-packed things going on here. It's really exciting, fun, fast episode. Doesn't take a second to breathe at all, which is why I love it so much. This episode is just completely a grand finale, and it focuses on that 100%. It doesn't spend any time on setting things up or trying to build things up for payoff or doing any character developing, which I really love character development, I do, but you don't need it in this episode because it is the grand finale. There are some character developing things that happen within it, but it's not shoved in your face and they don't spend too much time on it. There's just some scenes here and there in between that might do that, especially towards the very end of the episode. But for the most part, it's just there to be a grand finale and give us payoff for everything Season 3 and even some prior seasons were building up, and it just works really damn well. It's really satisfying all around. So of course, first of all, you have the Mind Flayer battle in the mall itself with the giant Mind Flayer monster thing, and I just think that was so incredible because this is one of the best looking CGI monsters I've ever seen. Not even in just a TV show, like even when you compare it to movies, it looks incredible, and they have a really amazing battle with it. Of course, Eleven kind of fights it just a little bit, but not too much because her powers aren't really working in this episode. This starts off the episode with actually her powers kind of losing their ability because she was bitten by the Mind Flayer monster in the prior episode. So therefore, the group has to kind of rely on other things. They rely on fireworks mainly. I mean, Lucas got all these fireworks and the group is kind of like throwing fireworks down from above, which I thought was really cool. So a lot of fun stuff there. They even take the Mind Flayer out. At one point, they take the monster away from the mall to kind of lead it away so they can buy more time. And it doesn't last very long. It kind of just finds out that Eleven is back, back at the mall later on, and then just goes back. Once Billy sees where Eleven is, that's when they're like, the monster's like, oh shit, I gotta go back to the mall. So then the monster goes back to the mall. But at first, the monster didn't know that, and I thought that was really cool. Billy has a couple really nice scenes in this episode as well. This is Billy's redemption episode. We get a really cool scene where Eleven is talking to Billy and explaining to him kind of like the memories that she saw inside of his mind with his mother and stuff. And Billy just finally gets to overtake the Mind Flayer inside of him and fight back, which is again a really big theme of this entire show about memories and how important memories are, and music is what was able to bring back memories for Max within Season 4, but this was just purely from Eleven talking to Billy and kind of bringing those memories back. That kind of lets him overtake the Mind Flayer. That's kind of like the whole theme of this entire show, is that happy memories can kind of overcome evil, I guess. I don't know. I really think that was a really cool thing that happened in this episode, and Billy gets to fight back. He of course dies, but he does it in a way that's redeeming himself and sacrificing himself for the rest of the group, which was really great. I would say the most exciting stuff of this episode was probably the stuff with Hopper, Joyce, and Murray in the Russian base, because Hopper gets to fight the Russian Terminator guy, which was amazing. I mean, that fight scene between the two of them was definitely one of the best 1v1 fight scenes I've ever seen in a television show, and it ends, of course, with him just throwing that guy straight into that machine, and it just like destroys his body. Like he basically explodes.
I'll see you in hell.
And then of course we see Hopper's fake out death, which is one of the fake out deaths I actually think worked very well because they didn't spend too much time making us think he was dead. They literally, by the end of the episode, they tell us that he's alive pretty much by kind of hinting it. They don't like straight up tell us he lied, but they hint it. And I thought it worked very, very well because it was believable. It was a believable fake out death. It wasn't annoying. It was one of the few times I think a fake out actually worked very well, and it made for a very emotional ending when Eleven finds out what happened. And then of course Eleven gets that letter from Hopper. Very emotional letter. I thought it was amazing though, the way that scene played out and the music, and everyone's kind of hugging. They're all sad that of course they're moving away. The buyers are moving away with Eleven, so very, very sad, man. I just really love that ending scene more than anything. But a lot of other stuff that is in this episode that was also really great, like Susie and Dustin singing Never Ending Story, which was an incredible scene. It was just really funny. Like, that's the thing this episode does that I think maybe like the other episodes kind of missed out on, because they're really dealing with a lot of big stakes and highly emotional scenes. It's hard to find a lot of time for humor, but this episode finds a time for humor in like the beginning of it, which I thought was nice. But obviously when things get more serious towards the end, the humor goes away. Stranger Things knows when to stop being humorous. They know when to just make things serious, and they do that very well in this episode. They mix humor and seriousness very, very well. But it's just awesome to see everyone kind of get their moment in this episode and just have so much payoff for such a great season and really be a solid finale overall. But like I said, the past two episodes, episode 4 of season 4 and episode 9 of season 4, could definitely also be number 1. It just depends on how I'm feeling. If I'm in a horror mood, I'll probably go with, 404. If I'm in a emotional, I want to cry mood, 409. Maybe if I want an action-packed, fun-filled finale, then maybe I'll go with 308. Like, it really just depends on how I'm feeling. They're all masterpieces, though. It is the 3, just some of my favorite episodes of television ever, to be honest. So hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. Let me know your lists in the comment section below. Also give me your worst episode, maybe. I think that'd be kind of cool, like a top 10 best, and then just give me the worst episode, maybe top 5 worst. I don't know. I will see you on my next one. Peace out.